Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we usually go back and look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. However, today we have a special bonus episode where we're tackling a film from 2026. This is Netflix's original military science fiction action film called War Machine. It's directed by Patrick Hughes and stars Alan Ritchson, Dennis Quaid, Stephan James, Courtney, Esai Morales, Keiynan, Lonsdale, and Daniel Weber. I'm Jesse, I'm your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original special bonus episode on the Flix Forum podcast. As always, if this is a film that you haven't seen yet, please do give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because we're going to spoil this as we go. And I need to put it out there a little bit early, I guess, is that we have actually done a Netflix original film on this show already called War Machine. Now, this is a film that's also directed by an Australian, David Michaud, but this is a film that stars Brad Pitt and is a little bit of a critique, I guess, of war. So this is very different. This is called War Machine, called the same, but this is the film from 2026 that we're covering here right now. So if that's the film that you've watched, hang around, listen, because we're going to get into this show where we start off with the Fast Flicks, which is our quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one's about a soldier who makes a promise to his brother to join the US Rangers, but faces more than the usual military challenges along the way. There we go. Hopefully that intrigues you. All right, let's get into it. How did this one end up on Netflix? What do we know, or what have we learned as I've been looking into this film? So on Netflix, when you jump on, their logline is: an Army Ranger candidate and his team encounter an otherworldly killing machine in this action movie starring Alan Ritchson from Reacher and Dennis Quaid. Then, as you're watching on Netflix, it says, on one last grueling mission during Army Ranger training, a combat engineer must lead his unit in a fight against a giant otherworldly killing machine. There we go. Very similar. There we go. So what else around the world? What's it called? So War Machine is obviously in reference to this creature that is a big machine and creates havoc. But in Chinese, it's called Invasion Machine. That makes sense. In Hungarian, it's called Unknown Attackers. That's very true, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit later on too. In Polish, it's called a killing machine, and in Turkish, it's also called killer machine. So there we go. That's what we're dealing with in this episode. So the director, Patrick Hughes, he came up with the idea for War Machine back in 2017. We go to November of 2021, where it was reported that Hughes had been hired to write and direct the film at Lionsgate. Alan Ritchson was cast in the lead role in March of 2024, and then in September of 2024, Dennis Quaid, Stephan James, Courtney, and others rounded out the cast of the film. Principal photography began on September the 16th, 2024 in Victoria, Australia, as well as Queenstown in New Zealand, with Aaron Morton serving as the cinematographer. Other locations included Bright, Myrtleford, Melbourne, and the Docklands Studios in Melbourne, with filming wrapping on December 14th, 2024. There you go. This is our second bonus episode in a row where the movie's been made in my hometown. So if you've been listening along to our bonus episodes recently, we did cover a shark attack film called Thrash, another 2026 film that was also filmed at the Docklands Studios in Melbourne too. So there we go. Two Netflix films released within a month of each other that have been filmed in and around close vicinity to where I live. Apparently, the production for this film created over 2,100 local jobs and contributed approximately $73 million to the Victorian economy, which is the state of Victoria in which Melbourne sits. Alan Ritchson, he performed many of his own stunts in this film, including an underwater sequence that required extended breath holds of up to 2 minutes. So there we go, he gave it his all in this film. War Machine, the film, was originally developed with the intention to release it theatrically, and that's obviously where Lionsgate were involved. However, due to high demand from streaming platforms, the decision was made to sell and then release the distribution rights to Netflix. To qualify for an additional 10% in tax rebates, an Australian theatrical release was required. So War Machine was given a very limited release in Australian cinemas from February 12th, 2026, with a 5-week run on 52 screens, which made about 82,000 Australian dollars. It did hit Netflix worldwide, and in its first 5 weeks, the film had more than 118 million views. It was the number one film globally on Netflix for 2 weeks and reached the top 10 in 93 countries and was number one in 87 of them. So overall, you would say this is pretty positive for Netflix. You would think that they would be enjoying those numbers. So, obviously, following this positive reception, Alan Ritchson, the lead in this film, expressed interest in reprising his lead role in future installments. The actor stated that there is currently tons of story material in place for follow-up movies, while referring to a sequel as War Machines, while writer-director Patrick Hughes in the joint interview confirmed that he has a larger story arc for sequels should they be greenlit. In another interview, Hughes stated that while the first film was created as a standalone, he intends that the movie's ending could create a franchise. There we go. So, will we get a second film? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. As mentioned before, this did have a limited theatrical release in Australia from the 12th of Feb 2026. Before hitting Netflix worldwide on the 6th of March 2026. This reportedly had a budget of about $80 million. So obviously that 10% tax rebate from the Australian government would have definitely helped there. So I said before, it was about 80,000 Australian dollars that it took at the box office, which I think equates to about 57,000 US dollars. Some other filming locations. I mentioned that this was filmed in Melbourne at the Dockland Studios, as well as other locations in Victoria, such as Myrtleford and Bright, which are sort of little country towns a fair way out of the city, as well as Laverton, which is an outer suburb in Melbourne, as well as Oakley, another southeastern suburb location, which was very similar to what we saw for Thrash, where I think Canterbury was used as a location too. There were also some shots taken in Wanaka and Alexandra in New Zealand, or as the locals in New Zealand would call it would be Alex, because this is a very beautiful part in the south of New Zealand, Wanaka and Alex. So if you ever get the chance, head into Queenstown and venture out to those lovely locations too. This was nominated at the Australian Writers Guild for the John Hind Award for the Best Science Fiction Film as well. So there we go. Very good. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? If we head to Rotten Tomatoes, this sits at 69%. That's on 64 reviews. That is fresh. That is definitely fresh. The audience, for pretty similar, 65% on more than 1,000 ratings. If we head over to IMDb, pretty similar ratings. It's got 86,000 ratings and it sits at a 6.3 out of 10. So you'd say pretty solid there as well. A little bit lower on Letterboxd, which is where you often say it's a film-loving audience. It sits at a 2.6 out of 5. But that's with 172,000 ratings, but it's been logged by 190,000 people. They're huge numbers, big numbers. And then if we head over to Metacritic, our traffic light system of red, yellow, and green. Red meaning poor, green meaning good. The critics have it sitting at a 54 out of 100. That's on 11 reviews, so that's in the middle. That's a yellow. But the audience has it at a 6.5 out of 10 on 164 reviews. So that's green. So there we go. Audiences seem to be enjoying it. But overall, you'd say critics haven't minded this one either. But what are my early thoughts? I know you're all eager to hear. So I probably got to put it out there. This film was not what I expected one little bit. I thought I was going to be watching like a military action film, not a sci-fi film. So when that sci-fi element arrives, I was a little bit surprised. But I think it's well done. It doesn't break the mold or do anything revolutionary, but it does the job. It's a solid, easy watch, which is enjoyable. So we talk about the characters. What did we learn about the characters? Who are the characters? This one is super hard because the characters, or the soldiers, they go by numbers. They don't actually have names. So our main protagonist is number 81, and the film revolves around him. The opening of the film is a flashback to him in Afghanistan with his brother, where he's the only survivor during the conflict, and his brother dies. And he believes that he's failed his brother here. So they have matching tattoos as brothers, so you know that they're close. And he promised his brother that he would join the Rangers with him. So this is what 81 has his mind set on doing, even if he's suffering from PTSD and a knee injury from this conflict in Afghanistan. He joins this ranger camp and he keeps to himself during this stage. He doesn't want to make friends. Feels like he doesn't need to make friends. He just wants to get to the end. He wants to get to the finish line. Even though it's identified in quite a few stages that he's got clear leadership qualities, and these do come to light, I guess, in the back end of the film. The only other character I can really talk about is Soldier 7. This is the one diverse cast member, I guess, who tries to get to know 81 early on, but is shut off by him. But throughout their final stage of this Ranger course, Number 7 gets injured, and he almost steps in as the replacement for 81's brother. He's the one who needs to be carried to safety for the rest of the mission, and they do have a little bit of a bonding moment as well. The other soldiers, I think there was 44, 15, 72, 57, 109. I couldn't tell you one other thing about them. There's no development around them at all, other than they show more human emotion than number 81. That's it. So this film is about 81, realistically, and that's it. So there we go. The director. Let's talk about the director, Patrick Hughes. This guy is Victorian. He's from Melbourne as well, so it makes sense that he's made a connection. So he started off, I guess, directing this Australian film called Red Hill, but then has gone on to do big Hollywood blockbusters like The Expendables 3 and The Hitman's Bodyguard and the sequel Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, as well as The Man from Toronto too. So there was a couple of interviews mentioning where he was very happy to be coming back home to where he started. And there you go, nice little story there from an Australian director. Let's talk about some scenes. What are the scenes that worked? What didn't work? We start off with what I enjoyed. I think that the 7 weeks of training montage, it takes up a huge chunk of the start of this film, but it was extremely well done to show how dedicated 81 was in achieving his goal of completing this course. There were scenes of him going under the water in the pool, carrying weights until he passed out, running up the hill, not worrying or holding up for the other soldiers. These were all done really well. I also liked the intercut flashbacks of Afghanistan, of 81 with his brother, and these moments matched with current moments that he was having, and I thought they were really well done throughout as well. The this metallic thing that's in their mission, the soldiers all look at it, they start loading it with explosives. 81 goes off and sees that their actual target isn't that thing, and then this metallic thing turns into a robot machine. And I mentioned this before, that really surprised me. I wasn't expecting this to be a sci-fi film or expecting it to turn into a science fiction film. So there we go. That got me as a good little surprise. Other moments throughout along this journey of this last 24 hours, the abseiling off the cliff was shot really well. The zip line across the river, that was super well done, super on the edge of your seat, whether this robot sort of thing's going to come, as well as you know, some dangerous moments in the water. The truck, they all get into this military truck and are chased, just excellently done throughout. This line of dialogue, I think it was like, is it an asteroid from another planet? And I think the response was, it sure as shit ain't from this one. That made me laugh. I liked 81 explaining the silver medal being the worst day of his life. He received this medal for surviving Afghanistan, but all it did was remind him of his dead brother. There's a moment where 81 and number 7 are the last two surviving, the last two left, and he's dragging him through the mud in the rain and really struggling. But then they have this moment together in the woods at night time where 7 finally says, I knew your brother, and gives 81 the confidence that he knows based on what he's heard about him, that he never gives up. And this gives 81 the strength to then go on and investigate and finish with this climactic battle, which I enjoyed, where 81 takes over a bulldozer, this huge bulldozer, and takes on the robot. It's laughable saying it out loud, but the idea that this this bulldozer is able to take this alien robot out, and then finally, as it falls, it lets out all these bombs, and 81's like, you've got to be shitting me, and runs as this even bigger explosion goes off. I thought that was really good too. The only thing that didn't really work was the back end, right at the end of the film. 81, the character, is given this moment to give a pump-up speech to the soldiers going out to fight these things. I thought that was a pretty ordinary speech, but then he follows them and he races with them to jump into the helicopter, and he's back in. Surely he gets some rest. Surely. I mean, it's like he's falling asleep on the helicopter at the end, but I mean, the fact that they've let him go straight back out there, interesting. Other than that, what's the film trying to say? What are some themes, some ideas, some motifs? That idea or that symbol of 81 carrying someone on his shoulders, whether it was his brother, whether it was 7 at the end, or whether he's sitting waiting outside the office for the generals or the corporals, and there's a statue of that same symbol in front of him. But this all ties in with survival and determination, and not giving up or not quitting or overcoming fear and isolation as well. There's obviously that idea of a hero and what a hero is, and the idea if you can't control what's inside, you can't control what's outside, and sometimes those outside factors look up to you and want a response and an answer from you too. 81 obviously faces trauma and the idea of overcoming it and dealing with it and making it a part of who you are, and still recognizing who his brother was to him. it's a little bit of a pro-military film, I guess, but also pro-humanity. The idea that humans working together as a team can overcome obstacles and overcome the unknown too. But at that same time, and this is a bit of a blatant, explicit line of dialogue at the end of the film, every machine has limits. There was lots of times throughout where 81 was questioned whether he was ready to join the Rangers, and the idea that humans are machines too, and they do have limits, as do machinery too. All right. What else did I take away from this film? This film's been on my watch list for a long time because I play basketball. I play casual basketball, men's league, midweek, and one of my teammates from our basketball team sort of mentioned, this is a while ago now, back when it was being made, he's like, I was an extra. I did some extra work in this film that's coming out on Netflix called War Machine. And I was like, War Machine? I'm like, that movie I did an episode on that a long time ago. Are you sure that's what it's called? Yeah, War Machine. I'm in this film. So big shout out to Craig. Saw you on screen. Well done. It's impressive to see someone in a Netflix film. So there you go. All right, some questions, some pondering, some thoughts to finish off. I guess the big question of this film is, who are the invaders? What do they want other than to destroy life? And there's this moment in the film where 81 is watching from the woods or from the forest. He's watching this robot, and it's like beaming up into the air, and he asks out loud, who are you talking to? I mean, as an audience, wouldn't we like to know? But I understand sometimes the ambiguity or the idea of not giving an answer is important as well. I mentioned this, I guess, when I spoke about the characters, but I do kind of wish that they gave the soldiers some names, not just the numbers, because there probably would have been more of a connection with some of the others along the way. They probably would have meant more other than just being numbers that died, because, and I'm not sure whether this is a reflection in the idea that soldiers, when they do die, they're just seen as numbers by people rather than actual human beings, and maybe that's the point of it. But as a film, watching a film, sometimes, especially when there's moments where you're losing these guys left, right, and center, it's nice to know who they are and what they are. When they announced that there was a 24-hour death march at the end of this 8-week Ranger program, I just sort of assumed it was going to be something like that movie called The Long Walk, based on that Stephen King story. I'm not sure why, but that's what came to my mind. Just a little random thought. And there's another line of dialogue in this film too, where they're talking about the asteroids, or talking about the robots, asking, is it the Russians or is it the Chinese? I guess this is just a little subtle little line that highlights who Hollywood see as the villains currently, almost. And I'm sure Netflix don't really care, because I don't think they're big. They don't exist in China, and I'm pretty sure they're still not accessible in Russia over the Ukraine war. So interesting little side note there. Gatorade. Gatorade pop out of the glove box in the tank at some stage. Just some good screen time, man. I couldn't see in the credits or anything like that saying that there was some promotional product placement done, but good on Gatorade for getting some screen time. Finally, the credits. I hung around in the credits just to check out some of the Australian mentions in there as well. And there's a thank you to the Honourable Colin Brooks, who's the Member of Parliament for the Victorian Parliament, and he's the Minister for Creative Industries. Never heard of this guy in my life. I had to look him up. He's still in the role today. He's only been doing it for 2 and a bit years, but he's a part of the Labor cabinet government currently in the Victorian Parliament. So there you go. There's an interesting little thank you there, as well as a thank you to the Victorian Police Academy, which I thought was nice. That's a little sweet thing. Didn't realise they were involved, but they obviously, if you've been to Melbourne or know Melbourne, there's an area in Glen Waverley where the police academy sits up high up on the hill, and if you're travelling anywhere near there, you can see their building up in the sky. So there you go. Very cool. Other than that, I'm ready to wrap this one up. This one is it's a new film, so obviously it's not in order as usual, but we're still giving it a rating out of 5 stars. So for me, it's like one of those dumb fun watches. I think it's like a big action filled special effects film that knows what it is and does it well, and so it's definitely worth a watch from my end. It's original too. It's not based on any property, even though there's lots of people that say it's a mishmash of multiple different films or video games. It's still an original film. I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. Solid score for me today. We are on socials. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a like. The question for this episode that I wanted to ponder was, where do these machines come from? Are they from space? Is that the idea that they're aliens from space? I mean, the news reports throughout the film sort of highlight that it looks like it's an asteroid coming from space, so you've got to think it's from somewhere out there. But Are they alien type creatures, or what are they? I'm intrigued. Maybe if we get a sequel, we'll find out an answer. But what do you think? Where do they come from? Let us know in the comments. Other than that, we have a huge back catalogue of podcast episodes covering Netflix original films. We have over 500 episodes. So give us a follow, give us a like, search us on your favorite podcast platform. See if there's a Netflix original film that we've covered that you'd like to listen to as well. Other than that, we are back on Monday for our regular episode. Thanks as always for listening. I'll see you soon.